All right. Good evening, everyone. I went live a couple minutes early, about 15 minutes before I said I was going to do it, just because I'm new to this. I wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be any sort of tech issues or roadblocks thrown in the way. So we're just going to hang out here for a minute while hopefully some people join. And I want to test on my computer and make sure that it's actually live real quick. So that's what I'm doing over here. Because if I'm just talking to myself the whole time, I might be anyway. And that's all right. I've got some things to talk about, things to say. Okay, let me see. How can I go about testing this? Okay. So we're there. That's awesome. Again, I just wanted to make sure that it was up and that it was available. I hope everybody's having a good summer. It's about halfway through July at this point. It's kind of a weird time of the year for those of us who are in education. I'm a teacher, if you don't know, because it's not like school's right around the corner. There's still a couple weeks left for rest and relaxation or to get other work done that needs to get done. But, oh, I've got a comment. Hello, yes. Hi, it's working. It is. Finally, it's working. How are you doing, Carly? But yeah, it's at that point of the year where there's not as much of summer left to where you feel like you don't have to think about school at all. But I don't know. It just kind of spoils it that some way through. I'm doing good, Carly. Doing good. Hello, hello. People are coming in. I do like to read. Um, this is going to be a discussion about the road. But if the conversation trails off into things that we read, that we've read, or that we're thinking about reading, we could talk about that too. Hi, Nicholas. How are you doing? I've been pretty good. I've been pretty good. Long time no see. Did you saw this? Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that'd be great, Nicholas. I'll have to reach out to you and get a hold of you here before the next school year starts, and we can catch up. That'd be great. Very cool. Very cool. I'm gonna keep calling you soccer boys because I'm not sure who you are. I know other people, but I appreciate you being here. Definitely. So I was just saying a little bit earlier. I did the stream a little bit early. I recognize your YouTube handle. I just don't know who you are in person. Be great, Nicholas. Very cool. Well, like I was saying earlier, this is my first time live streaming. I tried to do it last week and I couldn't do it on my computer because I didn't write software. And so that didn't work out. And I just wanted to make sure that everything was up and working this time around so that there wasn't dead air or it just didn't go live at all or anything like that. Yeah, neither did I. Well, it's working. I'm talking to people, so something turned out well. Hope everybody's having a good summer. The key fair's happening here in my town, although it's been raining all week often, so I'm not sure if that's ruining things for people or not. I haven't been. I used to love going to the fair when I was younger. I know a lot of people, they go to fair and they like the rides, or maybe they like to play games. I like looking at the livestock. It's the Christian County, Midwest. There's always livestock there. I just liked going and seeing the goats or whatever it was. Uh, yeah, fairs are great. There was one game that I really liked when I was a kid, and looking back on it, it's funny because I'm pretty sure it was straight up like gambling and everybody was doing it. But there was this booth called Rusty the Rat, and it was basically this big circular table that spun around. You could spin the table, and on the outer rim of the table, there were different holes that were color coded. So there was like the red hole, the green hole going around the table. And what they would do is that they'd take a live rat, and then they'd put it into the center of the table and cover it with a dish or something and start spinning the table. And then they'd lift the lid of the dish and the rat would run somewhere. It'd run into one of the holes on the outside edge of the table. If you put money on the color that the rat ran into, you won the round. So it was fun. I really enjoyed doing it. But looking back on it, it's kind of a fishy rodent roulette. Yes, right. It didn't really harm the rat at all, so that's good. I mean, maybe he was a little dizzy, but I'd like to think that whoever owned him fed him good, or gave him rat toys or rat treats or something after the night concluded. So it's not the worst fate for a rat. Yeah, Nicholas, are you still working on your story that we've discussed? I'm just waiting a few more minutes till 7 o'clock, giving other people a chance to come in here. They are very good, very good. Nice. Speaking of rats, I've got my tea mug with this rat-like creature who's wearing suspenders and a bow tie. My stepmom got this for me, and she said that it looked like me. So, I mean, I didn't really look like me, but I did think it was funny. So it's one of my main tea drinking mugs now. All right. I'm noticing that like the views on this thing are going up and down wildly. It's kind of funny. Well, that's good, Carly. Yeah, we can call it a bear, even though it's not. Even though my stepmom apparently told me I looked kind of like a rat. Yeah. I don't know if it's an insult or a praise. They are all over the place. It's interesting. And I don't know if there's just people like cruising around YouTube looking for live streams, and it for them as a suggested. That's a possibility. I was kind of thinking only the people who were on my channel would see it. But if strangers come in, that's fine too. They are kind of all over the place. So I'm only going to, well, I was thinking of going for about maybe 30, 40 minutes, just kind of chatting the Wintrov Angel. If I have a couple things I want to say about it, I took down some notes earlier today, just some things that interest me about the story and that I haven't really made videos about yet. But yeah, we'll go for about 30 or 40 minutes. We can talk about the Wintrov Angel first, and then if we want to talk about other books or other things, other projects. I mean, this is live, but if anybody's working on their own thing that they want to kind of talk about in the comments, we can do that too. Just be aware that, you know, people might be back and see it. Is that what you're doing, Nicholas? Are you flooding it? All right. Yeah, that's fine. So let's go ahead and talk about part 1 of the Wintrov Angel. This came out about a month ago, and I've made videos on it already, how I feel about the printed portion of it. For some reason, the font was shrunk a little bit when it came, but it's still readable. And I just read a book yesterday that was like a Penguin Classics book, and the font on the book was just about the same as this, if not smaller. So it's readable. It's just not exactly what I had in mind. Yes, I am reading your chats. Just flood it with chats if you need to. Is it a novel that will get sequels or like part 1? So it's kind of like how Lord of the Rings is 6 parts, right? So the intention behind that was kind of like the Victorian novelists, Dickens, Elizabeth Gaskell, Thomas Hardy, writers like that. What they would do was their novels would be serialized. So Dickens, his novels are known for being massive, like 800, 900 pages sometimes. But when they were first coming out, they were being released in a literary journal, in a magazine, in segments. And so a year or so would go by when he's publishing them by part, and then once they're all out, it would be published in an official, all bound together version. So that's kind of what I was thinking of, how I was thinking of this arranged. In my mind right now, there are going to be 10 parts. Not every part will be 4 chapters. There'll be some that have 5 chapters in them. And I would have made it more chapters per part, but I haven't started writing the book yet. I'm about halfway done as it stands now. There's going to be 42 chapters, and I'm up to chapter 25, but there are good portions of chapters 20 to 25 that are like half written. So I can only really say that I've got like the first 19 chapters completely written. And I'll go back and revise those too. And I've been chatting with a friend of mine about the frequency with which these will be published. So part 1 came out here at the start of summer in June. I'm going to try to do 3 parts a year. So 1 release every 4 months. I don't want to go any longer than that because people would forget parts of the story between that. If you wait too long, part 4 comes out and it's like, oh man, I can't remember what happened. So I'm going to aim for every 4 months releasing a part, but we'll see. I in the back of my head, I'm still fearing writer's block is going to suddenly descend, and then I'm not going to be able to write anything for months on end. And I'm sure novel will get finished, but it wouldn't be like a great unfinished novel like Dickens's The Mystery of Edwin Drood, or I guess George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones books. Right? He's never going to finish those. I don't think he will anyway. Yeah, right. That's what Nicholas just said too. No, I won't do a George R.R. Martin. I will get the ending of the novel out in some form, in some way. But yeah, I'm thinking every 4 months or so you can look for a new release. And I mentioned this in one of the earlier videos. The ebook version is about $4.99 and the paperback is $9.99. I really didn't want the paperback to be that expensive, but Amazon, when I published through Amazon, they essentially said, hey, if you make like 5 cents off of a sale, it needs to be at least $9.99. I was like, okay. But I do get that will get expensive. It's stretched out over the span of a couple years or so, but by the time you bought all 10 parts, I don't fault anyone for buying the ebook version, especially since I'm going to come out with a revised, complete version afterward either. That's just, I guess, how the publishing game goes on Amazon. Right, Carly? Right, yeah, people spend that much on coffee. I could go to Red Lobster or something and spend that much for all 10 books on one meal. That should be saying more about my appetite than anything. Well, it's only been out for about a month, Nicholas, so I'd have to get to you on that. And this is the first part, so we'll see how it goes as more and more parts get released. I wasn't expecting to make a whole lot. And my goal especially for these sections isn't to make lots of money. It's just to get the ideas out there so people can read the novel as I'm working on it. And then ultimately when the final version is released, that's the one that I'm really going to hope to do good financially on. Earl Grey. I'm drinking Earl Grey right now out of my rat cup. No, it's a fair question, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen in terms of royalties either. So it'll be an adventure to kind of if they go up or down. Hopefully they go up, but as subsequent part published, maybe and it reaches a bigger audience, maybe they'll. Trying to think of. I think at this point I've sold about 20 copies. So that should give you a sense kind of where I am. Now with Amazon, just so you know, it's not like you make all of the money that you're charging for it. So if the paperback book was $4.99, I think I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think I'm making like $6 off of the $9.99 because Amazon takes a chunk of that for production costs and things. They are publishing it. So, yeah, it's making some money. Well, thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate that. Very cool. All right, so let's talk about the first 4 chapters of the Wintrov Angel. This picture, I was actually kind of proud of this cover, and now I'm wondering what I'm going to make the covers of the other parts be. I took this picture. If you saw a video that I published a couple months back, it was at the location that inspired Edder's Pond from chapter 1. It's near a hiking trail that I'm on. It's kind of just like this little dingy sunken pond in the middle. And I took a picture of it while I was there, and then I was tweaking with it on my phone. I actually took this picture in broad daylight, and then it looks like it's nighttime on the cover. So I was kind of happy with how it turned out. Does it, Nicholas? Okay. Yeah. I don't know exactly how the streaming quality is. If I freeze up or anything, somebody just let me know in the chat. Yeah, that was day, but it doesn't look like it either. So I was happy with the cover. Yeah, I'm using my phone. You would actually laugh if you saw the contraption that I have right now in order to have the phone light positioned so I don't have to hold it the whole time. I've got it balanced on a giant stack of books, and to keep it from falling over, there's a coat hanger that I put between some of the books, and the hook is wrapping around the corner of my phone. It's a real sort of MacGyver. I don't know if you guys ever saw MacGyver or anything. It was an older show. You could basically do anything with a paper clip and piece of string. You know, he made all these inventions, but it looks really funny. I'm glad that nobody can see how it's set up here. So I want to kind of frame the discussion of the chapters around different elements. First, I guess we could start with character. I'd like to talk about characters, how I'd like to talk a little bit about how I portrayed them, ways that I went about giving them voices, distinctive personalities, but also you guys' thought. So as far as the characters in the story go, were there any standout characters, any that maybe you didn't like? And this would be useful to know because, again, one of the reasons I'm releasing this in parts is that, say I have like a side character, like the innkeeper from chapter 2, right? Just threw him out there. Say there's a side character that I didn't really think much of, but if we're doing a live stream and everybody's like, wow, that guy was great, I can make more of him if it doesn't interfere with the plot of the story too much. You know, I could introduce him more, give him a bit more voice in later sections. Who are some characters that stood out to you? If you've read the chapters, if you haven't read them all, or if you're just here to hang out, that's fine too. But I wanted to kind of open up the floor for other people to leave some comments before I jumped into what I wanted to say. The innkeeper gets a spin-off TV series. Yes, yes. Oh, and that's, I don't know what he'll do there, but I serve beer and be happy and make sure that the beds are clean and free of lice. Carly says, his wife. Yes, Myrtle Forster. Did you like her or not like her? She says shudders. Well, the other characters kind of shudder around her as well. But yeah, Myrtle Forster is an interesting character. She's kind of like a Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come experience for Lorelai. And that's not spoiling too much of the plot because it mentions on the back of the book where this is going, right? Lorelai will eventually find herself in a kinswife position towards the end of the novel, and introducing Myrtle kind of sets up her Lorelai's attitude toward kinswives, this kind of deep-seated fear she has, and that a lot of girls in Forsha have, that they might become one. And so Myrtle's kind of foreshadowing what will happen to Lorelai. Does she have anything more to say as Lorelai's own circumstances are more similar? Interesting. And I'm kind of mentioned Myrtle, Carly, because she is a character that, at least in the way that I kind of have her conceived now, she's kind of a ancillary character, kind of a minor character, but the only person that's told me that they liked Myrtle. So I have thinking already about ways to make her more involved in later chapters. And yeah, that'd be interesting to kind of have Lorelai and Myrtle meeting in the same place, when they're in the same place later on in the story. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's interesting, Nicholas. Yeah, he says that the bad guy nations, what their marriage customs are like. I actually haven't really thought about what their customs are going to be. The Sabians. Sadria is the enemy nation. They're kind of I conceptualize them as sort of a Mediterranean sort of nation, whereas Fortia is kind of Eastern European. Uh, but yeah, the Sadrians, I don't think I have it planned out. So in later chapters, we'll get at the domestic life of Sadrians. We get some characters. We do get Skander. Skander the Sadrian, Carly is saying. We basically Sadria's representative character, at least in the first half of the book. Now later on in the book, I'll spoil that. Some characters do end up in Sadria, so we get a little bit more of a look, more of a broad look at their culture. But for a good first part of the story, Skander is kind of the only Sadrian that we meet and that we get any dialogue with. Yeah, that's interesting, Nicholas. You got a Poland vibe? Okay. Yeah. Well, Eastern European, somewhere around there. Oh, hello. Hi. Okay. I figured there weren't Carlys. But hello. Thanks for joining. Skander makes me think of the name Scamander. Oh, interesting. I'm trying to think of where that came from because I'm bad at coming up with names in the sense of I'll come up with what I think is a really cool original sounding name, and then it turns out it's from somewhere and just my subconscious remembered it. It's from some story or some other movie. But yeah, that's close to Scamander. Um, the villains. Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, Skander is really the only Sadrian that we've met so far. I don't want him. I don't want the location. I don't want there to be too close of a parallel between Fortia and a real world nation or Sadria and a real world nation. When I say Eastern European for Fortia and kind of Mediterranean Sadria, that those are, think about it in the vaguest sense, right? I don't want there to be like a clear parallel between, oh, Fortia is, Russia or something like that, even though they sound similar. The name Fortia actually came from a combination of a town that's near where I live and something from a Shakespeare play. I sort of combined the character name and the town name and came up with Fortia. And then I realized, oh, it kind of sounds like Russia, but it works. No, yeah. And they're not really supposed to get a lot of lore at the beginning because the story's coming from mostly Lorelai's perspective and her siblings' perspective. And so they've very much grown up in the mind that the Sadrians are enemies, right? And as the novel progresses, those presuppositions are going to be challenged a bit, but they're not, they're kind of the boogeymen at the beginning of the story. So the vaguer, the better in that sense. Right. It's the long cycle of eating up words. Shakespeare makes up words, so I'm going to steal his words, mangle them, and then make my own too. Another interesting thing about Skander, and this might lead into something that I wanted to talk about, is his patterns of speech. I was really interested in coming up with some of these characters to make sure that each of them, not all of them, but that some of them had distinctive speech patterns. Because people are like that. People have distinctive speech patterns when they talk. And so Skander, if you notice, he speaks very formally. He never speaks in contractions. It's kind of this sort of a wooden manner of speaking. Scammer? Oh, you mean Skander? Yeah. So Skander's way of speaking is very formal and wooden, whereas other characters, Katerina, Lorelai's sister. I'll use her as an example just because for her it's pretty obvious. She's speaking. She can't speak in complete sentence. She's very kind of scatterbrained, right? Just for example, in the opening scene, when she's trying to explain to Lorelai that she saw a shadow outside, you know, her sentence is fragmented. She says, "You know how hard it's been for me to. Anyway, it crept right by, not the shadow of an owl or an elk, but a man, and on its head." I recognized the fur cap that it wore. The one strap always was loose and dangled. Do you think? So she's kind of unable to complete a sentence because new thoughts are coming into her mind as she's talking. Whereas characters like, does it? Well, that's probably it. That's a good point because it is a foreign language, right? So Skander probably doesn't speak Fortian very well, and so his language is kind of stilted. That's a good reason for that. That's a great point. Yeah. Maybe later on in the book we meet other Sadrians. We could experiment with that a little bit, see if they all kind of have like a learning curve with the Fortian language. Yeah, that's true. If you watch interviews of Tolkien talking about his work, it's very kind of scattered. I like listening to interviews of his. It's fun to see how his brain works. Now, all this thing about language is going to become important later on because, Katerina, she's scatterbrained. She talks in sentence fragments. Skander's language is really formal. You might have noticed, although this isn't as evident from face value, but Adric, the brother, speaks in superlatives. There's lots of exclamation marks that pop up talking. He can't just really say something; he exclaims it. But we're going to meet a character in part 2 who, how do I want to say it? I'm probably going to make a video about this character, a separate about this character as well, because the first time that you read his dialogue, you're going to think either your brain went haywire or I made a ton of typos, because he speaks in a lot of Malifaux. He kind of mangles words. He tries to sound eloquent and smooth talking and sophisticated, but he doesn't really have a grasp on the words that he's using. So he, for example, in one scene, he's trying to compliment somebody on the dinner that's being served. And he's wanting to say that it's delectable, but instead he says that it's defectable. Or later on, he's going to be talking about seraphims and cherubs in heaven, and he's going to say shrubs and surf hymns. His language is going to be kind of mangled like that. And he's kind of a comedic character, but it'll be very obvious when you're reading that he's the character who's speaking at a particular moment. I'd like every character to kind of have their own distinctive voice. Lorelai doesn't have one as much, I guess, because of all the characters, she kind of speaks closest to my own voice. She's my main character. But other characters do have their quirks of speech. They also have their own ways of thinking. And what I mean by that is trying to describe the thought process of these characters. Dogberry. Yeah. I hadn't even thought of that, but yeah, that's essentially what's going on. Good call, guys. Yeah, that's great. Very cool. Yeah, Bottom, Polonius. One of the Wintrov brothers, the third one, Vasily. It didn't really come out so much in this section, but he's very long-winded. And he was kind of inspired by a character from Wintrov, which if you've been in a class before, you've probably remembered me mentioning Les Mis because it's my favorite novel. But there's a character in Les Mis, and his name's Grantaire, and he can't speak a line of dialogue that runs less than a full page, because when he starts talking, he just goes, right? And Vasily is kind of that way too. He's going to have very long, kind of rambling speeches. A class for parents at Kepler. Well, yeah. What would be the topic? That's an interesting concept. Like one of the parent classes, Darkling Peak based on Wuthering Heights. Ooh. If anything, you mean the name? No, it actually isn't. But now that I think about it, what I was kind of having in mind was the name of, not the name, but the location. I was thinking about Mr. Rochester's place in Jane Eyre, which is actually written Emily Bronte's sister. I was kind of going for that vibe. So close, yeah, you were on the right track. I've always liked the word darkling. It's in a John Keats poem, and the name of the poem escapes me at the moment. But I just think it's a cool word. And when I was trying to come up with a name for this manor house, I actually still have the old notebook here. It took me forever to settle on a good name. And if I go back and look, I think I had names like... I'm not going to be able to find it now. But yeah, I think I had like Bloodcliff, Blackcliff, Rose Peak, Red's Peak. There was actually Bloodstone. Probably picking up on a theme here. There was for some reason I was wanting blood involved, but I eventually settled on Darkling Peak after going through a lot of different variations of names. And we'll go to Darkling Peak in part 2. There is a bit of a mystery behind it. There's a bit of at least what I'm going for is that there's a bit of sort of like an unsettling darkness about the place. And so it needed to have kind of a little bit of a spooky name, but nothing too spooky because I didn't want it to be cliche, or I didn't want to give the impression that all the Wintrovs are like evil or something, which they're not. As a matter of fact, by the end of the book, when you look at all the characters, the Wintrov brothers, the ones that she's going to end up marrying, they're probably the most innocent of the characters that we meet. The mother and the father, so much. But yeah, there's kind of mixed feelings about Wintrov Peak. An overview of literature. I got yeah, well, that wasn't my experience in high school, but it was my experience in pretty much right on point. That's a good idea. Overview of literature and how it should be read or taught. As far as contribute to that conversation, I think that'd be great. That'd be really fun to do. Yeah, go ahead and add whatever comes to mind, Nicholas. That works. Oh, while you're doing that, I wanted to talk about like the portrayal of thought. I've talked a little bit in my classes about the stream of consciousness writing. Dostoevsky is an author that does this really well, where he's depicting sort of thought process that takes places in characters' heads. And one way that I kind of try to mimic that is through a contrast between Lorelai and Katerina, where when Lorelai thinks, she thinks through memory, and where when Katerina thinks, she thinks through imagination. So, just for example, in chapter 3, when the Flood Rush Festival, she's wandering around, and as she's thinking, she's remembering back to experiences that she's had in the past with family. When she's going through the woods with Katerina in chapter 1, she's remembering past hikes, days when her dad took her out into the woods. She's a very sort of memory-oriented thinker, whereas Katerina tends to think through leaps of imagination. When she's standing next to Skander in chapter 4, she imagines herself in his position, a foreigner amidst a hostile crowd. She imagines what her friends must be thinking. So Katerina thinks via imagination, whereas Lorelai thinks via memory. And I'm still playing around with that. As I've been writing later chapters, I kind of had to remind myself that it was something I wanted to do, and so I go back and rewrite it. But just something to keep an eye on in future parts, if that's working well or not. I'd be curious to get feedback on that. All right, let me see. The idea is to explore the old idea of a female being remarried to her husband's brother based on the Bible. Well, actually, it turns out that it's not unique to the Hebrews. And I kind of thought it was too. They're called levirate marriage. And I was thinking, okay, levirate, Levi, it's coming out of the book of Leviticus. But I guess other cultures have practiced levirate marriages. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. If it's supposed to be a big theme, other elements of the faith would be very overt. What do you mean by elements of the faith? That's interesting. Faith will come to playing a more prominent role in later chapters. It's not super strong here first couple chapters, but a little bit later on, there's going to be more, again, I guess, Dostoevsky-like conversations between the characters about God, God's plan, what's the meaning of suffering, how we kind of learn through suffering, and how there's a purpose behind everything. Conversations will come in a little bit later, definitely. Now, if you're talking about the faith of the Fortians, Nicholas, Fortians are ostensibly Christian. Yeah, curious to see how else Christianity is blended into the culture. Do weddings involve priests? Do Sadrians have churches? That's a really good point. And we'll see in section 2 that there isn't officially the country's pretty Christian. And I keep it vague. It's not like they're Orthodox or Catholic or anything Christian. But there is an underlying pre-Christian religion of the Fortians as well. And the father of the Wintrov family, he's not an adherent of it, but he's very enamored of it. And it's a very, I really sorted out in my own mind what all it involves, but it's definitely more pagan, a little darker. The Sadrians themselves, I'm not sure. I haven't given a lot of thought as to what their religious beliefs will be. I just take them from the Bible. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading everybody's thoughts. Some good points. Faith is a big deal. Particularly, well, not particularly but for Lorelai, it's going to be really important because the whole genesis of this story idea was that I was reading that passage in the New Testament where the Sadducees bring this scenario to Jesus. And they say, well, we had this woman, she married a man, he died, so his brother had her, he died too, she went through all seven, and then she died too. The Sadducees posited that as kind of a gotcha question to begin with. It's very likely that that wasn't even a real thing. They were just trying to trip Jesus up in his words. But when I was reading it, I started thinking about what a woman in that situation would feel like. Because on one level, it's not her fault. She's not killing her husband. But on the other level, you would really start to question what's wrong with yourself, what's wrong between you and God. Almost a very Job-like dynamic. And that'll come into play for Lorelai. Why is this happening? And it'll especially come into play because she's going to be accused by other characters, like Job is accused by his friends who are insisting that doing something wrong, or that she's not right with God, and it's for these reasons that all these tragedies are happening. The book of Job is a big influence on this story as well. Yeah, right. Yeah, we're gonna try to trick the Lord. We could go wrong with that. Yeah, you picked up on the signet rings. There's a lot of foreshadowing going on in Katerina's dream, and that was one of the scenes that just came in a flash of inspiration. Like other scenes, you got to kind of work on, go back and tinker with them, really think about what you're gonna say. But in the dream sequence of Katerina's, there's a way to interpret it from the point we are right now in the book. And then by the end of the book, you'll be able to go back and reinterpret it in a different way. The signet rings definitely are symbolic of the seven brothers. She's essentially going to be into the Wintrov family 7 times. But the fact that she's buried alive in the dream, and Katerina starts to suspect, even though she's struggling, she won't get out. And I don't want to give too much away, but there's significance to the fact that in the dream, Katerina's mom kind of critiques her too. She says, promise that you won't do something like this again. And Katerina says, what did I do? That has some significance as well, which again will make sense towards the end of the book. But yeah, I like that you noticed the rings. I need to know a lot of things of significance happened in chapter 4 that don't seem to be super significant on the face of it, but it'll come around. There was one other really important scene in chapter 4. I don't think I want to say because that gives too much away, but it's not going to be years. If this custom is good, evil, just a thing, or something else. Oh, yeah, well, that's an interesting point. Not, I'm not really trying to condemn the custom in the book. It's kind of neutral, the levirate marriage custom, so readers can kind of draw their own conclusion about it. They could definitely read it and say, oh, this is awful. Or they could read it and kind of take the Myrtle Forster perspective, which is it's like, oh, this is in a culture where loyalty and duty to family surmounts loyalty and duty to one's own plans for one's life. And so it's a good thing. But my focus is kind of on Lorelai's specific experience in the levirate marriage. It's not really a combination of the levirate marriage practice. At least that's what I was going for. I guess you could read it that way. Nicholas kind of onto something there with that comment, but I can't talk too much about it because it's going to spoil things. It's not Lorelai's fault. Somebody is at fault, but I'm not going to say who. At least in my concept, it's not like God's going to. There's not going to be a Deus Ex Machina moment where God says, "This all happened because of the actions of whoever you are." But yeah, that will become more apparent as the book progresses as well. But yeah, that theme of duty, that's going to be one of the big themes to keep an eye on in future sections. Also, the theme of selflessness versus selfishness, that one's a big one. And it wasn't even initially a theme that I was going to harp on too much, but it's kind of naturally developed as the story goes. We see characters who are driven by selflessness, and then other characters who are driven by selfishness. And in part one, that's most apparent when you compare and contrast Lorelai and Adric, right? So Lorelai, she's a very selfless individual, right? Even from the first page, she doesn't want to get out of bed, but she does, and she goes out into the cold on a winter night just to set her sister's mind at ease. In chapter 2, she stays behind to help the men who've been wounded in the battle. She's very selfless. Whereas Adric, I'm trying to hate on Adric. Or you're trying not to hate on Adric? You can. Adric's kind of a jerk. And he will be for a while. I was laughing about this with a friend of mine because Adric's going to go off to war. There's already talks in part 1 that these two countries are going to go to war with each other. War chapters. The war won't last for the whole novel. The war will last up to about chapter 20 or so. Some authors, or not, some people might think that if a character's kind of a jerk and he goes off to war, he's going to be humbled and he's going to come back wise. He's going to have changed perspective. And Adric, if anything, he comes back worse. But there is a little bit of not a little bit. Adric will have his moments, his redemptive moments as well. He's fun to write for. I've always kind of liked writing for villainous characters. So yeah, feel free to hate on Adric. Yeah, Nicholas saying show other forms of duty and other characters and jobs or whatever. And that's there. So there's duty to country. That's really going to come out in the war chapters, particularly with Lorelai's husband. I mean, spoiler alert, but we've already established that she's going to marry these guys who really wants to just stay at home with his new wife, does not want to go to war, but goes, but duty to his country. For others, there's duty to family. That really is a driving factor for a lot of the Wintrov brothers. It was the driving factor for Myrtle, the kinswife, to stay with her deceased husband's family. And sometimes those duties conflict. You'll see a bit of a pull. And with Adric, in Adric's defense, he's not very introspective. He's a selfish character, but he thinks that he's doing right by the memory of his parents. He sees himself as like the sole provider and savior of the Merrywell family's fortunes. And it just happens to coincide that he's in charge of the Merrywell family. What benefits the family is kind of what benefits himself. So he's kind of blind to that side of his own sense of duty. He thinks he's making sacrifices for the good of the family, but really he's just aggrandizing himself. Okay, I got behind on the chats. Marriage to the Baron. Yeah, is he contemplating that his sister will always be married to a Wintrov due to the marriage custom? Probably. He's not. That's probably going through his mind. He's not anticipating all 7 husbands dying, right? Nobody's really thinking about the potential loss here until war starts, and then they'll start thinking about those things. But yeah, he's definitely seeing Lorelai's marriage into the Merrywell family as a cash cow for himself, and it's a surefire thing, which is why he's pressuring her a lot in these first 4 chapters to go with this marriage. There's going to be even more pressure in the next section. He wants this marriage to happen. Skander does throw a wrench into the theme. So Skander is a character who is very selfish. And he's very honest about it in his own way. He's a soldier. Lorelai's shocked that he's very willing to give up important information about the Sadrian army in order to go free. He only cares about himself. When she sees him at the party, she asks, "Why are you still here? Haven't you given them all the information that they want, or have you been ransomed back yet?" He's like, "Well, they want to take me to the capital now." And she says, "Well, why don't you run away? You're not in chains or anything." He says, "Yeah, but if I ran away, if I made a port, it's winter and it's cold and I'm not going to have a lot of food. If they take me to the capital, I'm going to get fed all the way. I'm going to get to ride in a nice carriage. It's nice. It's kind of the high life." So yeah, Skander, and there's going to be one other character too that we'll meet who's important, who is very similar to Skander, that it's just about survival. It's like, do what it takes to survive. The ends always justify the means. And that's going to be contrasted with Lorelai's attitude, with the Wintrov brothers' attitude. And Katerina is kind of caught in the middle of it. You can't tell from the first 4 chapters, but down the road, she's going to be kind of torn between those 2 worldviews. I haven't seen Adric do anything that he wouldn't have been expected to do if the parents live. Yeah, that's true. And I feel a little bit of pity for Adric, right? Because he is kind of thrust in this head of the household position. He's just under 20, 19, 20. He's got his 2 sisters to take care of. Poor. So a lot of his actions are fear-based. He's afraid that they're going to run out of money. He's afraid that he's not going to be able to provide for them. So he tries to move his sister like pawns in the most advantageous way for more money to come in. But yeah, Adric, he's a character. And I don't know if I want to say this. Okay, so this isn't too much of a spoiler. But Adric behaves sort of monstrously in these early chapters. And I thought that it would be appropriate, as it progresses, for his outward form to reflect his inward form a little bit more closely. And watching a video of facial products that soldiers who fought in World War I or World War II, something happened and their faces got marred irreparably. They would have these copper tin masks, facial prosthetics to put over the wound. Essentially, it's Phantom of the Opera stuff, and look for that in Adric's future. Going to have a great time in the war at all. And he's going to look very scary by the end of things. Hey, Krista. Woohoo, we're here. I don't want to talk too much about that part of Adric's journey because it's spoiling a lot. But yeah, he's going to. It's going to be very Phantom of the Opera-esque, or I guess Two-Face if you want a Batman reference. No, there's no gas. It's more of an explosion. But that's getting too into the details of stuff. He'll survive. I mean, it's not like I'm spoiling like the death of a character or anything, but he definitely goes through a lot. It almost makes you feel sorry for him. So yeah, those that theme of selflessness versus selfishness, that will be reflected all throughout the story. The selfishness mostly for characters like Adric, like Skander, and then some other people. Sutton Hoo. Isa Wicker is interesting. He lost a brother. He seems more mature than Adric. Maybe that's because we don't know him as well. Yeah, Isa, I don't know how to pronounce his name either. Sometimes I say Isa and sometimes I say Issa. He's a character that I haven't been able to really get a good grasp of as I've been writing. And I'm still writing scenes with him in it. I'll probably go back through and do some revisions in the scenes that he's in once I have a better understanding of his character. But sometimes some of these characters, I know everything about him. Adric's kind of like that. Lorelai's like that. Vasily, Wintrov is like that. And then ones, it's almost like you're meeting strangers and you're learning about them as you go. And Isa's kind of that way. He does lose a brother. We're going to see that it really does change him a lot. In part 2, we're going to see kind of what he's like in war, in the war chapters. And we're going to get the war chapters from Adric's perspective, by the way. So in part 1, you got the first 3 chapters were Lorelai's perspective. 4th was Katarina's. Part 2 will be the first 3 chapters, Lorelai's, and then part 4 will be an Adric chapter. So my point of view characters are the 3 Merrywell siblings. Nobody else really becomes a point of view character. But Adric being a point of view character was necessary because I want the war chapters to depict what's happening in this war, and he's going to be somebody that's there. Sutton Hoo. It's interesting. Who's Sutton Hoo? I thought you were making... There's actually a character in the book named Sutton. And I just suddenly remembered that, oh yeah, he wasn't mentioned in this part. So I think that's a reference that I didn't get. Oh, Saxon. Oh, okay, yeah. Right. He's a very sort of scary looking character. And like I said, I was kind of inspired by Phantom of the Opera, kind of inspired by what was the name? It was in one of the superhero movies. I can't remember if it was Wonder Woman or Captain America, but there was the chemist, the woman that was the chemist, and she had like one of those weird facial prosthetics over one of her face. If somebody knows what I'm talking about in the comments, throw it in there. Was that in Wonder Woman? Do you remember what the name of the villain was, Nicholas? I can't. I would look on my phone. My phone is doing this. I think it was like Lady... Okay. Please. Yeah, so that was sort of the inspiration behind that. Okay, so we've talked about Myrtle. We've talked about Skander and Adric. Other standout characters, anybody who anybody really would want to read more about in upcoming chapters. Sometimes I get like a side character that I really kind of fall in love with, and it annoys me that I can't do anything with him. The innkeeper that I mentioned earlier is an example. He was actually one of them, Bosman Quickrill. I really love the idea that he's so set in his mindset of being an innkeeper that even when they're bringing in injured soldiers, he's saying things that don't make any sense. He's like, the finest quality sheets here. You sure they don't want to drink? You know, and maybe kick up their feet by the fire. He can't get out of the hostess mindset or the host mindset. And I thought that was kind of funny. He was fun to write about, but he is not an important character. I don't know if you guys picked up names. Not all of them are like this, but the people that live in the Brookwoods have water-themed names. So Merrywell, Bosman Quickrill, Dr. Rivers, the Brookwoods, Brooks. Whereas the further north you get, the more sort of winter-based names you get, like Wintrov, right? Winter's right in there. I play around with that. It's not like a fast rule all through it. Hello, someone. Welcome to the party. Yeah, the innkeeper, he was just going off about random stuff. There's some funny moments because it's a heavy book, right? When one of your themes is about meaning and suffering, or if there's a point to suffering, it's going to be a heavy book. And I try to make it lighthearted when I can. There'll be some funnier characters that we run into in the background. One or two major characters I think are pretty funny. I think two of the Wintrov brothers, Lucan and Vasily, they're funny. Going back to that patterns of speech thing, Lucan Wintrov is another character who has kind of his own distinct way of speaking. He really loves his puns. So the whole first conversation that he has with Lorelai is a bunch of puns about how he has a club foot, and he's a punny guy. There'll be more puns aside from just about his club foot, but it's hard to write puns. I've learned that. I'm a guy that likes puns, and a lot of them are funny because they sound similar to other words. But when you're writing them, it's hard to make that clear that's what you're doing. How deep do you go into Katerina's life? Pretty deep. Katerina she'll be a major character. More so as the novel progresses. For a while, she'll kind of serve as a foil to Lorelai. So here's Lorelai, who keeps losing her husbands, hasn't managed to have a child with any of them. She's sort of looked at suspiciously by the family that she's into. Katerina is going to have better luck than her in that at first. Katerina will meet... I don't want to get too far into that. She'll have a more stable future at the beginning, and then we'll see that she runs into problems as well. Katerina she's very different from Lorelai and Adric. I don't know, what was your impressions of her, Krista? Was she likable, or was she almost too naive? I was afraid that I made her almost too naive. She's just kind of scatterbrained, but good-hearted. Katerina, yeah. Her sister calls her Catty, or Katie, I guess. Each brother introduced looks like someone I know, and they're going to die. Someone you know in real life? Yeah, Sylvie Woods. That Sylvie Woods, I was going for like a foresty name, like Sheriff Forster. And yeah, I didn't try too hard on hers. She's not a major character. It is kind of a redundant name. How old is who again, Nicholas? Katerina? So I actually have a list here because I had to write it down because otherwise I'd forget, of people's ages. So Lorelai is 17 at the start of the story, and Katerina is 15. And the story is going to take place over the course of about 20, 30 years or so. So we're going to see them all grow up pretty quickly. But yeah, Katerina is about 15. She's innocent and sweet. Unfortunately, I don't know why I'm smiling when I'm saying this, but unfortunately, Katerina will for a bit. People say that authors kind of are sadistic because they just put their characters through the ringer. And I really don't like to do it, but I guess there's... she was it didn't traumatize her too much. She's really traumatized over the death of her parents, and she will be for a while. But Lorelai definitely wants to protect her, and she's going to find that hard to do when she's married into the Wintrov family, because Serena is going to be on her own sort of journey. But the relationship between the two sisters is really important. And honestly, if that's not well established, then the ending of the book won't be satisfactory. I really want it to be well established that Lorelai cares a lot about Katerina, and would basically do anything to protect her. Adric does too, but Adric cares more about himself. Oh, did he say it was a ton of fun? Yeah. So yeah, Katerina, we'll get more point of view chapters of her. Not in the second part, in the third part. I think chapter 9 is one of her point of view chapters. She goes through a really interesting character arc. She goes from innocent to really being almost kind of jaded or hardened toward the end of the book. But that's not where it ends for her either. She goes through a lot, but she does gain a lot as well. We'll meet her. Right. This is taking place over the course of 20, 30 years. Katerina will have children. That'll be an important dynamic for her, protecting her kids. One of which I cannot on a name for the life of me. I've been trying to come up with names for Katerina's children for weeks, and I can't think of any good ones. Because at one part, they're going to be really young, and then towards the end of the book, they're kind of young adults. So I need a name that's a baby name, but also can sound kind of like a protagonist name too. But yeah. And we'll meet, in part 2, we're going to meet the Wintrov brothers that we didn't meet. So we met the first 4 in chapter 3, and it'll sound a little weird because the 2 youngest are like 8 and 9 years old when we meet them. And it's like, whoa, what? These are guys that Lorelai's going to end up marrying? Yeah, but 20 years down the road. There's a very noticeable gap in the age between and them at the beginning of the story. But then when they're both in their 20s, it's not as noticeable. And it doesn't really matter from the perspective of the kinswife, right? Because the kinswife, she's kind of delegated to, household maid status. If she marries a brother who is already married to someone else. Look at Myrtle Forster, right? It's not like there's a strong connection between her and the sheriff. she kind of marries him, becomes his kinswife because that's done in their society. So Lorelai, again, Myrtle sort of foreshadows Lorelai will find herself in a similar situation with those younger brothers. One of them, at least. Well, guys, we have gone over an hour. That's awesome. I was only planning 30 or 40 minutes or so. Any other comments or questions or just general feedback from part one before we kind of call it a night here? I really appreciate everybody coming in. I was halfway thinking that it was just going to be me talking to nobody for about an hour, and I had stuff to say, but it made it easier having people to talk to as well. Well, thank you for being here, Nicholas. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll get a hold of you here soon. I'll send you an email and we'll set up a time. Well, thank you. Thank you. It would be funny. I don't know what happened at the beginning when there was like 30 people here and then they all left. But yes. Well, the announcement wasn't really great because I was going to do it this week and I couldn't do it, and then I just kind of when's the next part? When's the next book coming out? Or the next live stream? Because the next book is probably going to come out in October. And I wasn't planning on doing another live stream before then. Although we could. That might be fun. Just talk about writing in general. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you for picking up the... hopefully you enjoyed it. It's a project that I've been working on for a while. And I don't know, I hope everybody likes it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and sound off then. I'm going to try to end the stream without knocking my phone over in the way that I've got it set up. Yep. Okay. See you guys. Have a good evening.